I like looking at the way YouTube communities form and evolve, and eventually even die off. And a YouTube community that I've been fascinated by for a while now is Katie Hater community, or the Cater community as we call them now. The without a crystal ball hater community is another way to put it. Though this community is completely separate from the without a crystal ball criticism community, there used to be a lot more overlap than there is now. So just to be sure that nobody gets this twisted, let's talk about the different sub-communities under the umbrella after we talk about who Katie, or without a crystal ball, is. WOACB, ran by infamous YouTuber Without a Crystal Ball, is a gossip slash drama slash tea channel with, at the time of recording, over 200,000 subscribers. Damn! She got her start writing for blog news site Pathos before working with a now completely dead, beyond dead, completely beyond dead, absolutely totally dead YouTube channel, which inspired her to start her own channel, most likely after seeing how much money said YouTube channel raked in while still alive. Because they made a lot of cheddar. That cheddar cheese. And little do most people know that Katie, oh, she loves cheddar cheese. It didn't take long though after this for Katie to be sued by famous YouTuber Toddy Westbrook. Well, and then C-list, well, actually D-list, E-list. Well, look, we'll just say Z-list pseudo-celebrity Todd Chrysler Chrisley sued her. And yes, he's the fashion-obsessed Gossip Tea USA channel freakout Z-celeb, Todd Chrisley. Both sued her for defamation, and as of now, she is still in court with Chrysler. I know that she's supposedly facing 3 more lawsuits due to the claim being made, but those 3 lawsuits have not made it into court. So we're just gonna leave them out until they're actually filed, basically. The main thing to take away from this is that she's been accused of defamation and making up stories for just about her entire stint on the YouTube platform up to the present. And that is where these communities that surround her come into play. The communities around Katie are as numerous as hippie tents outside of Woodstock. So this is where it gets a little funky. Most anyone she's ever tried to work with in any way, and yes, that's including myself, have come out to criticize her openly now. She has a pretty healthy group of criticizers as of current YouTube day, and I believe the YouTube year is year 6 AD, or after demonetization, year 6. Channels like Charlotte, Normal Bird Lady, Teaspiracy, and even Janet Being Janet, which is one channel I myself can't help watching. I'm almost just addicted to the channel because Janet has a farm and horses and is really good at making commentary videos out on the farm. This is a talent Janet has. It's actually a very good talent. These healthy criticizers seem to always try to have a point to the videos they make. Inside of those videos, they make good criticisms mostly, and most of them are willing to compare Katie to the same rules that they apply to anyone else, which is how you judge a good commentary channel. They will bring up other people without too much of a bias. Let's move on to the actual haters, because that's where we have this interview. So Katie has a unique following that most of us know about. This group is the group that is obviously obsessed with Katie, as opposed to commentating on Katie. I would name off names of the people in that group, but they don't deserve the attention. Honestly, none of them do. This group is very different from the first group, and unlike the previous, apply a set of rules to Katie that borders on near expecting perfection. And with any tiny thing that Katie does outside of that set perfection, they rip it apart alongside even the most nasty things that Katie does, almost creating a blur between the two. In this group, they don't apply any of their rules that they apply to Katie to the people around them or even to themselves. Hypocrisy goes through the roof. And there is a way to differentiate people in this group from the normal criticizers pretty easily. You take something they've done and ask yourself, if Katie had done it, what would the same people be saying about Katie? And you'll realize most of these people do the worst things that Katie has done, or even worse. A quick list is, as you already all know, doxing, attacking and doxing family members, threatening people, phone numbers, reports from the past, cancel culture, cancel culture, cancel culture. You get my drift, right? I could list many, many, many more things, but I don't need to. Those things are most likely going to come up in the interview, which is the current topic. So let's go ahead and move on to interview with a YouTube hater. I want to give you a quick statement about my general thoughts of the interview. When I had EKC on, people had given me many points to bring up with her. I thought that EKC would come in and at least be somewhat honest. I do feel she was very dishonest throughout the entire interview. She was giving excuses that pushed the blame off, wasn't honest or accurate about what happened, and just in general filled me full of a narrative, excuses, or however you want to classify, just being extremely dishonest and telling me what she thought I or the audience wanted to hear. That's my general take, and that's why during the first discussion, I didn't go really in depth and I just let her talk. And even though we didn't get her honest response to things, she said some things that I think make a really big deal. So let's get into those.
I think also too, we're expecting way too much out of YouTube creators.
I feel she's never applied this to any of her criticisms or to the people around her. And that is hypocrisy, in case you didn't know. You'll notice that this is a theme throughout this entire interview.
The thing is we're all going to be assholes at times. We're all going to get angry. We're always going to be in that right state of mind where something just sets us off. And that's not the problem, though. I think what's the problem, though, is that when that does happen, and when we realize that's happened, like right afterwards, is how we go about handling it from there.
When I asked her about people that she actively supports and herself and her friends having instances of doxing that are worse than even things Katie has done, or at least equal to, this completely is contradicted by something you'll hear later in the interview, where she says we're never going to be able to fix anything and we just have to commentate on it and move on. You'll see as we move forward in this clip, she gives a response that is definitely an excuse to not only her past behavior, but makes light of her friend's behavior, which if you compare it to any criticism she's ever given towards Katie or any of the things that she's made up or said about myself, you'll realize quickly this is just an excuse, a mindset that we are supposed to hear so that we, if we accept it, can't judge her or her friends for doing the horrible things that they actively call everyone else out for.
There and out, and how the rest of us go about offering grace that's what's important. And thing I'm not about to offer grace to anyone who doesn't truly want it.
What about offering grace has to do with redemption, correction, apology, fixing things? Well, grace is, I suppose, if you're being very gracious, you might forgive someone or try to, think godly even. Grace is related to God, right? Grace is related to divine forgiveness. I'm with you.
I mean, humility is a human trait that is long desired to be seen by everyone else.
Throughout the interview, you'll notice a lot of these kind of grandeur falls to quotes that don't apply until you see that what she's trying to tell me is she's expecting humility from these bigger YouTubers, the bigger YouTuber that she calls out or that she talks about. Though I would say it didn't really apply or make much sense unless you spend a lot of time trying to reconcile it. So instead of a direct answer, her friends or people she supports around her doing things that are way worse than Katie. I'll give you an example. She supports someone that we call the Rage Hog, but he has doxed and threatened to call parents and offered to pay people for people's doxes so that he can intimidate them and put them down openly on YouTube, deleted those clips after, pursued that information afterwards. So if I just relate that to Katie's issues, where she had the creep show issue or something else, that is far worse, far more numerous, far more intense. It's actually the entire, it's not only intent, but it's desiring the follow through. And again, her response is very vague, but if I was to try to tie it to something, I think it's giving me an excuse for why we shouldn't cancel them for doing this, even though they want us to cancel anyone they get mad at for doing a million times less. Another instance of that word, hypocrisy.
That's what I think the problem is, though. It's like you were saying, you know, how what we were the talk or whatever the conversation is. What do we do about it? The thing is there is no one answer, and there is no one definitive answer. This involves humans. So
I won't go any further due to the fact that it repeats the main points, but essentially, my friends are human. She's a human. EKC and her friends, they're people. They're gonna puff their chest out. They're gonna act this way. You shouldn't really cancel them. You shouldn't really call them out. Now, Katie, on the other hand, is a different story. And again, Katie may have many instances where she's done those things, just like the person we're talking about. Katie has done extreme things compared to other YouTubers when it comes to doxing. This person has done extreme things when compared to Katie and those other YouTubers. So, in the end, you get my point. Trigger warning. This involves things that are the worst things you can do to other people. Please do not continue watching if you will be heavily affected through the content. First, let's describe what actually happened. EKC and several of her friends went full Matrix super investigator journalist and filed a FOIA request, which is a request to get private or protected documents from an agency to find out if the FBI was investigating them and their friends. They admitted this, but also they admitted that they decided to file a request on an alleged crime against Katie. For the purpose of this video, I will be heavily censoring most of my response to this situation. First off, this is the most extreme thing that EKC and her close YouTube friends are known for doing to her. They cloaked it behind the guise of normal content against Katie, normal criticism against Katie, and pulled the official report. Then EKC represented the group and went on another YouTube channel, taking the audio and other documents along with several documents that related. I've been on YouTube for a really long time, and this is by far one of, if not the most extremely disgusting, cringy, nasty, low-cal things I've ever heard about someone doing to someone on the platform. I don't like your content and what you do on YouTube, so I'm going to go real life in the most extreme way. After they went live, other members of their group used their live stream as proof that she lied, even though they would have no way to determine that, and tried to claim that because Katie lied about this, then she'll lie about anything and shouldn't be believed. Ironic, just last night, a person from that group went live and tried to recall back to this issue and defend himself from past things that happened. So yes, just last night they are still using this live stream and what they did to try to get out of doxing, harassing, and etc. Now, a really quick debunk. Having the material that they had, I'm going to stress again, they would never be able to make a claim like they did. They didn't have enough material to do so. The things that they did claim that proved their case were ridiculous at best. I'm sure you could imagine. Because if they did have what they claimed they had, wouldn't they actually do something about it instead of going live on YouTube with a monetized video with ads and super chat and super thanks turned on? By the way, which they did. I checked yesterday. Also, they put their pay links in the video. Maybe get the material to the person affected so that a lawsuit could happen if you're telling the truth here. But even then, why go to YouTube? Some people will claim I'm defending or being nice to Katie. And if you're talking about when it comes to these types of worst things, then I believe no one, not even the worst people on YouTube, should be subjected to these things. I'm not evil like some people are. Anyone that would allow themselves to get so triggered over YouTube content that they wish another person to have this happen to them is just a low-cow and deserves to be laughed at. But in summation, not only is this whole situation horrible all around, the only thing EKC should be doing here is admitting truthfully what she did and apologizing, stating she'll never do it again, never dox anyone like this again. She didn't though, and in the interview, she just made excuses. It's interesting because as she talks about this, she talks about how Katie deserved what they did, but talks about how Katie was telling the truth. Either way, here you go.
There were dozens of posts between platforms, and in these posts and on this live stream, she, as we all know, she outed the person she accused, which I got no problem with that.
Quickly, she moves on to her excuse for why she did it.
I guess his family or their businesses, that was kind of fucked up. But and then she brought up the police department and the things that she was saying about this officer, the claims that she was making about what this officer said to her. I was in shock. Like, my whole thinking was, holy shit. So, and then she said in one stream, I think he's still there. And I'm like, what? So I'm thinking, well, if this is true, the department should know about it.
She goes on to state that things that Katie said all these years later, 14, 15 years later, caused her to feel as if she needed to report stuff to the department. Yeah.
If it's not true, well, the department should know about this. So, and I collected all this shit that she was saying about this and everything, and I just sent it to the department. I'm like, hey, just, I don't know if this guy's still there or whatever, whatever, just here you go.
I'm going to make a quick critique. The reason why laymen, people that aren't trained heavily, shouldn't be handling this severe topic like this, now giving your opinion is one thing, but trying to investigate and draw conclusions. One of the reasons why I disagree fully with what she's saying is that if this happened to her, and until we have reason to believe otherwise, we're just going to believe claims that are involved, like you notice Uncivil Law, Nate the Lawyer, Emily Baker, they'll do that a lot of the times. So just for the argument's sake, because we don't know the other way yet, we haven't had a determination. When this happens to someone, it is one of the, if not the worst event of their existence. A lot of people say they would rather not go on than go on with what's happened to them, continuing. They would much rather be ended, if you know. I'm trying to censor myself. So when someone lashes out like this, after an extreme thing like this happens to them, it's an expected part of the situation. Most of you know that I was deployed when I was in the military, and when heavy things, when extremely bad things, and again, censoring myself for YouTube, when that happens to a person, them lashing out at the people around them, screaming into the air, maybe even flailing around, sometimes passing out, sometimes having to be admitted to the hospital and medicated to calm them down. These are all things that happen. Investigators, people that are trained, they know this. And because of that, this response to this investigator, while she's treating it as if it's the worst thing in the world, if she would take the time to educate herself on these events, I don't think she would see it as a reason to react the way she is.
I heard back from the department, and it was obviously emphatically denied. And I was like, okay, well, and the thing is even that, I was prepared to just let it die there.
Now, again, this has been actually looked into by people since this interview happened. Another group out on YouTube has made the claim that they fact-checked some of the things she said and contacted this department just to ask several questions. And of course, those questions aren't about this extreme event. Those questions were about the fact that these people did this on YouTube, obtained the information in the beginning, things like that. And they claim that the department is very angry at the systems that force them to give out this kind of report to people that try to get it, and that information should be used in a specific way. And because of that, I can't comment any further, but I did want to make the claim that people say that the opposite is actually true, and the department understands what's going on and is actually more angry at the fact that this investigation has been blasted the way it is. Take that as you will. Those are two opposing claims. I'm not making the claim. I'm just repeating what they've said.
I did learn some information. I learned that their interview had been recorded or whatever, and I'm like, well, do I really want to go down that road? Do I want to do that? Do I want to?
Now, I feel that this is an example of why I didn't press her, because this is just not true. In fact, in the past, she has stated that these things are what drove her to do what she did. And so she made the decision, not, do I really want to do that, but I have to do this because of these other reasons. Back when this happened, her responses were completely different. The outrage that she received, she responded to in a completely different way. And whether she has just changed her opinion or not, she is referring to how she thought initially. So I do find it very dishonest and just a way to kind of get out of this severe criticism that she's faced since then, again, by doing something she's done throughout the enther interview.
To go to that extent to prove that she's lying here, or I hadn't made up my...
Again, to prove that she's lying here. In her mind, she's biased. It's not that there could be many people telling the truth. There could be many people lying. We have to go by an investigation and evidence and what can be found and proven. No, in her mind, it's just one person. It's just her, Katie. And then on top of that, it's always assuming the worst thing. It's always making all of these. If she has to make a conclusion where Katie's done something wrong or lied, she will instantly. But if it's thinking that Katie could be telling the truth, or something could be good for Katie, or that something somebody else does could be good for Katie, it immediately is disbelieved. And that is heavily represented throughout this more serious part. Haven't made up my mind. Let's hear the whole thing.
I hadn't made up my mind yet. I was going back and forth, but I hadn't done anything yet. But it wasn't until on her Facebook page, there was a thread where she was talking about this. And then it looked like there were local people to her on this thread. I mean, her mom even commented on this thread.
So she says that this is a motivation for why she felt she must do the right thing and protect those local people, because they all are, of course, involved in this or feel a certain way about this. And it's really shocking to me that you want to interject yourself into this local place's issue to try and, I guess, be motivated by the local people's response or people's individual response or whatever, considering that it's of such a serious nature and considering that, that's what the authorities are for. So the fact is, the local people are going to react based on who they know, who they're friends with, and all of those things, and says that this is what, as in these actions are what crime needs to be able to continue.
That openness, or that I don't know, you don't feel safe or confident reporting shit to authorities. That'll destroy an entire community. That is what exactly crime needs to continue and to.
So my point is, she says this, which is somewhat of a true statement. Maybe not though, but she's assuming one side is telling the truth and one side isn't. She's assuming that this didn't happen and that's why she needs to do these things. Now, there's a very shocking thing that comes up later that I could only, I had to rewatch this to get, but she even says that she believes that Katie is telling the truth, and there's a lot of things that she saw in this that proves Katie is telling the truth. So again, why are you acting like these local people believing Katie then is such a motivator or such an extreme thing? Again, I'm just calling that this is a complete contradiction. And it's just, when you're just listening to people go live and say these things over extremely long periods of time, you don't pick this up. But when you do get to go in and actually listen, then you hear it. So that's what destroys victims, is what she says. It's a pretty important quote, so I'll go ahead and play it.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention, that's what's going to destroy victims, because then you're looking at re-victimization, because nothing's ever changing, nothing's coming about, and whatever.
So she says that seeing these people say this stuff destroys victims, not the act itself, not what happened. Again, this, with what she says later on in the interview, basically saying that Katie has a lot of information that shows she was telling the truth, is terrifying. And the fact that she didn't pick up on that is even more terrifying. But to go even further, the fact that there are people out there who still support what she did, believe this stuff, they came out and framed many things as if she just did here. This is a commonality throughout what she did. I know that she's doing this now to make an excuse and that it's wrong. She is wrong, just like she was through the majority of this interview. This is really messed up. This is another thing. Like, I wanted to get her to realize this is not what she thought it was. Like, in her mind, she probably thought saying this accomplished something, and that's why she said it. Well, it accomplished the opposite. I hope she watches this and lets this sink in. You did something wrong, and no matter how much you talk or shift or gaslight or whatever, you're not going to change it. The best thing you can do is maybe take steps, classes, go talk to people, educate yourself, and really change and learn something from this. But I don't think that's what's going to happen, because she's only going to be concerned with continuing doing this in another situation to Katie. Another point I'll make, what she's done here is indicative of everything she's thrown at Katie. While I've told you, and I mean it, that the people out there that criticize her need to. Katie deserves it. She messes up, she does wrong. This is basically someone doing something that is on the level of the worst things Katie's ever done, but you have to multiply that by 1,000, because what they've done, I've never seen Katie go this far. I will say that I've seen Katie talk about these kind of issues, act just as flippant, act just as nasty, and just as, let's say, biased and sided. Again, though, I'm not gonna, I have already criticized those issues if you want to rewind back to criticism videos I've made against Katie, and that, so I want you to know that I still recognize what Katie does, and I still criticize Katie, but I'm also going to criticize the people who do worse things than her or equal things to her, and this is a major one.
So that was my whole concern, you know, and I weighed, even then though, still.
Now, at the end of this, her whole concern was that you are doing things that crime needs to prosper, remember? And that this destroys victims. I believe there has been nothing that destroys victims throughout the entire talk more than what she and her friends did, and that's just a fact. But again, the original thing she did, I can't even believe that it's still up on YouTube. It's on Little Red Y'all's YouTube channel. If you go to her videos, it's the most popular video there, and I can't believe YouTube would allow that video to stay there. I thought it was taken down for the longest time. She then goes into why she submitted the FOIA request, and there is a revelation here that I think is going to blow the situation wide open, and it's another reason why I am glad that we did this interview at the end of this.
Wayne going back and forth with it and all, and I thought, you know, I'd rather be wrong this way than be wrong the other way. So
let me just stop there. You'd rather be wrong this way and wrong the other way? You realize that you most likely are wrong at the fundamental level about this. The way you've acted while not knowing who's telling the truth or who's lying, who is the victim and who's not, and you assuming like you did and then taking these actions. It doesn't, in the end, it doesn't matter which side is lying, because what you did could have just as easily happened to this side that lied, or what you did could have just as easily happened to the other side that lied, depending on what the real truth is. And because you didn't care to have that truth before doing the things you did shows, you're just as willing to destroy victims in a way that's a million times worse than you reference here. You're just as willing to roll the dice and take the chance of doing any of the bad things you brought up, that she's, number one, being dishonest, gaslighting and lying about it, but number two, that she actually is doing the things that she thinks she's calling out someone else for. And that is the literal backbone of that entire group. The caters, the ones that are the worst ones. They are the ones that are doing the things because either they just can't see it because of unintelligence, being uneducated, or because they're blinded by hate, or they're blinded by jealousy. I'm sure it's different for each one. They are projecting when they do these things, when they do their content, because they are the ones who really are doing the things they call other people out for.
Even then, when I submitted the FOIA request, all I wanted was just the recording, the interview, so I could just learn if the officer did in fact say these things to her, or if there's no evidence of it.
But the problem is, when you originally came out, you said it was for the opposite reason. Not only that, you have, and people who you fully support and still go on their channels up until just 3 days ago, and 2 days ago is the day, or I'm sorry, up until 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and just yesterday is the day that this person still used this. See what I'm saying? you aren't criticizing people who are claiming that she lied about this. You still support them. You're allowing them to take what you did and go out and say she lied about everything, even though you're trying to say, no, this was all done by me and my friends to prove something about the officer. Why haven't you openly criticized, if it's so important to you, if it's so extreme, people that are out there trying to say that what you did proves that she lied about everything? The event. That's another reason why we know this is all just a lie. I really hope you go out and take the fact that just yesterday, one of your YouTube buddies that you support, that you share, you take your audience and you go to his channel and you have him on yours and you talk to him and support him. If you meant a word that you said here, as soon as you see this upload, you will immediately rush out, grab the clip where he just lied, because you're saying, again, as the person that did this, you did it because of the officer and helping the officer, where he said you did it, proved that she was lying about what really happened. I hope you do that immediately, because if you don't, you've actually backed up the fact that you're lying here with another piece of evidence. And the things that she said about YouTube were completely wrong. It's not how YouTube works. You obviously don't know as much about YouTube as you are trying to claim you did. And then I haven't labeled the end part here, but in my next video on this on Rockalot, I'll handle all of this. Let's go back to that worst thing, the revelation about what happened when she tried to get the report.
Just gonna request everything. Screw it. I would just request it all. And I wanted to add.
So something caused her just to request everything, which she's lying about the motivation for why she requested everything, of course.
That too. Because people keep saying, oh, would this open the door to this, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't. Because you know what? I guarantee you, Uni, you won't be able to get that report.
Okay. One of her main criticisms against her is that people say that you doing this opens the door for people who have committed these things, or people that are trying to make excuses for people that commit these things, to shame a victim, to go out and publicly pull the report and do exactly what you did so that they can use it for nefarious purposes like you did, just different nefarious purposes. I agree with them. I think that EKC is incorrect here and should apologize. I don't think she will. And I hope, though, that you realize this is a lie, though. She is saying this to protect herself from that piece of specific criticism, but she didn't do this for what she said she did. Let's just let you hear this, though. That should be handled in my next video, too. Let's just hear this.
You can go ahead, submit a FOIA request tomorrow, see how far you get.
So then she says that she submitted 2 FOIA requests and were rejected both times. Because if she wanted the report, she needed a specific piece of info. Because
you have to have specific information in order to get it to begin with. And I had something that nobody else has. Okay. And
yeah.
She never, it was a bit of information that I learned along the way that she never put out there.
So now she's admitting that it's information no one else has. It's information of the most private, most damaging, most selective.
It was because I had that bit of information that I was able to get this FOIA request.
And because she went out and did something to gain this information, she was able to get the FOIA. Now, I believe that it blows this wide open in the worst way for her. So what could that piece of information be? There are 2 theories, and there's a claim behind one of those theories, and there is evidence behind the other. So let's start with the one that is claimed. That same group of people that were trying to figure out a little bit, they say that they contacted the agency claimed they were not okay with people doing this, and the agency also claimed that they thought this was disgusting. They went on to say that the piece of information most likely was an identifying piece of information from the other side, the person who was accused, the accuser. So that would mean that because Katie talked about things, that they contacted the accuser, talked to the accuser, and then went and did what they did. Why they won't tell people that, I am not sure if that's true, again, because it's a claim at this point. Hopefully, by the time they do their video, it won't be a claim anymore, but either way. There's many things I could say about that, and you'll have to wait until I go live after they release their video, because I want to be able to hear what they have to say before I do more. The second possibility, one of the people in her group, in fact, ironically, the person who just used this information yesterday to try to claim that they are exonerated from things, that person had sued Katie and been in legal proceedings with Katie, not lawsuits for defamation, but training orders and other things. And many people believe that that most likely is a place where they went to gain very private information about Katie to attempt to gain the FOIA request on the third request. So again, the first theory says they filed 2 FOIA requests. They couldn't get them, so they went and talked to the accused and gained information from the accused that they used to get the FOIA request. The second theory is that they filed 2, and then in order to get the third one, they went to another member in their group, probably to the lawyer, and gained some piece of information about Katie that would allow them to get the request in the end. Now that we've handled that the most revealing part of this, and now that we've handled the worst part of this recording, I'm going to give my summation. The fact that you criticize her on YouTube and make money from doing it, you should have never done this. My point is, you should have said no. Not only just for every other reason I've listed, but obviously for that. Problem with channels that don't criticize, but who go this far to demonize and lie on other creators, regardless if that creator is infamous or famous, good or bad, is that a following of people that hate them just as much as the caters will follow the caters. They will pay them and support them doing this. This is bad because this is a targeted harassment campaign. You can visibly see where they criticize, and you can visibly see where they go too far and harass. And then you can visibly see where they harass in a way that we don't ever even see on YouTube, but rarely in this very unique situation. This isn't a group of people making content, gaming content, tutorials, or anything else. This is a group that will go the furthest, most hateful places to try and take any shot they can against her. Only describable as punishing her, trying to get a win. This interview is proof that EKC and those who sit next to her are gaslighters, liars. They make excuses, all of it to hate and spit jelly at the hated. They are haters. They at least have to be able to admit that.